When German intelligence officers compiled threat assessments of Allied fighters in late 1944, one aircraft received priority classification above even the feared Mustang: the Hawker Tempest. Luftwaffe pilots who'd survived encounters filed reports describing a British fighter that shouldn't exist, faster than anything Germany flew at low altitude, armed with devastating firepower and systematically destroying V-1 rockets and jet aircraft that were supposed to be invincible. What terrified German command wasn't just the Tempest's capabilities, but what those capabilities revealed about Britain's industrial capacity and Germany's inevitable defeat. Luftwaffe intelligence first documented Tempest encounters in April 1944, when pilots reported engaging a new British fighter variant that outran everything German aviation fielded below 15,000 feet. Initial reports were dismissed as exaggeration or misidentification. German tacticians assumed pilots were encountering late-model Spitfires, or perhaps American Mustangs, because accepting that Britain had developed another fighter superior to Germany's best contradicted the comfortable narrative that Luftwaffe technical superiority would eventually prevail once production problems were solved and new jet fighters entered service in sufficient numbers. But reports multiplied with disturbing consistency. FW-190 pilots attempting to engage bomber escorts at 12,000 feet found themselves unable to catch British fighters that accelerated away effortlessly. Bf-109G pilots diving to attack reported being overtaken by aircraft they initially thought were friendly jets. The distinctive profile, thick wings, large chin radiator, massive fuselage, didn't match any known British type, and the performance envelope completely exceeded what German intelligence had projected for Allied piston-engine fighters, creating confusion that delayed proper tactical response for critical weeks. Oberst Josef Pips, Priller, one of Germany's most experienced fighter commanders, filed a detailed encounter report in May 1944 after his FW-190 was nearly shot down by what he now knew was a Tempest. His assessment was blunt and alarming. This aircraft is faster than our best fighters at operational altitudes, turns adequately despite its size, and carries armament that destroys aircraft with brief bursts. Pilots report being unable to escape once engaged, and interception attempts fail because the British fighter simply accelerates away from pursuit. We have no tactical counter to this aircraft in current inventory. Luftwaffe Command forwarded Priller's report to the technical office with urgent requests for analysis. How had Britain developed such performance? What engine powered it? Could Germany develop equivalent capabilities? The questions revealed growing desperation as German fighter units faced an opponent that rendered their hard-won tactical experience increasingly irrelevant through sheer performance superiority that tactics couldn't overcome. And here's the wild part. The Tempest was about to get even scarier. Stick around because what comes next will blow your mind. But speed was just the beginning of Germany's Tempest nightmare. Germany's V-1 flying bomb campaign beginning June 1944 was supposed to be unstoppable. The pulse jet-powered cruise missile flew at 400 miles per hour at treetop level, too fast for most Allied fighters to intercept, too low for heavy anti-aircraft fire to engage effectively. German planners calculated that V-1s would terrorize British cities while Allied fighters watched helplessly, unable to catch weapons traveling faster than most aircraft could achieve at sea level, vindicating years of development investment in unmanned weapons that rendered enemy air defenses obsolete. Then Tempest squadrons began hunting V-1s systematically. The fighter's exceptional low-altitude speed, 435 miles per hour at 10,000 feet, allowed pilots to overtake flying bombs, position alongside them, and destroy them with cannon fire. Between June and September 1944, Tempest squadrons destroyed between 638 and 800 V-1s, more than any other fighter type. systematically dismantling a weapon system Germany had invested enormous resources developing, and demonstrating that British aviation had achieved performance levels that invalidated German planning assumptions about Allied defensive capabilities. Luftwaffe technical intelligence obtained gun camera footage from crashed Tempests showing V-1 interceptions. Engineers studied the footage frame by frame, calculating closing speeds, maneuvering characteristics, and firepower effectiveness. Their conclusions were devastating. The Tempest could engage V-1s with comfortable performance margins, meaning pilots had surplus speed for combat maneuvering rather than barely catching targets, and the 4 20mm Hispano cannons destroyed flying bombs with single bursts, creating kill rates approaching 90% once interception was achieved. The V-1 campaign's failure had multiple causes: improved radar detection, barrage balloons, anti-aircraft improvements, but Tempest interceptions contributed disproportionately to losses that made the campaign strategically ineffective. German command recognized that their wonder weapon wasn't surviving to reach targets because Britain had developed a conventional fighter capable of systematic interception, proving that technological innovation without considering enemy counter capabilities produces expensive failures rather than strategic advantages. Yet even as V-1s fell, Germany's real crisis was what came next. And trust me, when you see what the Tempest did to Germany's jets, you'll understand why Luftwaffe pilots were absolutely terrified. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss how this story gets even darker. Germany's jet fighters, the Me-262 and He-162, were supposed to render Allied piston-engine fighters obsolete through overwhelming speed advantages. The Me-262 could reach 540 miles per hour. The He-162 managed 520 miles per hour. No propeller-driven aircraft should have been able to engage jets successfully in air combat, and German pilots flying these revolutionary aircraft approached missions with confidence that their speed made them invulnerable to conventional fighters, able to attack Allied formations at will and escape before enemy aircraft could respond. Then Tempest pilots started shooting down jets. On April 19, 1945, a Tempest scored the first confirmed victory against an He-162. Additional Tempest pilots destroyed Me-262s during takeoff, landing, and even in combat when jets were caught at disadvantageous speeds. The victories shattered the mythology of jet invincibility and revealed that speed advantages alone didn't guarantee survival when opponents understood vulnerable phases of flight and possessed sufficient performance to exploit those vulnerabilities during critical moments. German jet pilot debriefings revealed how Tempests achieved the impossible. Jets were vulnerable during takeoff and landing when speeds dropped below 300 miles per hour, exactly where Tempest performance peaked. British pilots learned to patrol near known jet bases, waiting for moments when Me-262s and He-162s were slow and unable to maneuver effectively, then attacking with overwhelming firepower that destroyed jets before pilots could accelerate to speeds where escape was possible, turning Germany's technological advantage into a tactical liability that made every jet mission a calculated risk. Luftwaffe Command circulated urgent tactical directives attempting to protect jets from Tempest attacks, extended combat air patrols over jet bases, prohibitions on predictable flight paths, emergency dispersal to auxiliary fields. But the countermeasures consumed resources Germany couldn't spare while acknowledging that propeller-driven British fighters had neutralized jet advantages through tactical adaptation and superior low-altitude performance, demonstrating that even revolutionary technology couldn't overcome operational realities when opponents possessed adequate capabilities and tactical intelligence. The jet kills revealed something deeper about Germany's situation. In August 1944, German forces recovered a relatively intact Tempest Mark V that had crash-landed in occupied France. The fighter was immediately transported to Rechlin, the Luftwaffe's primary testing facility. The engineering sophistication was immediately apparent even before disassembly began. The Napier Sabre engine astonished German engineers. 24 cylinders arranged in an H configuration produced 2,180 horsepower, far exceeding any German inline engine. The sleeve valve design eliminated conventional poppet valves, allowing higher RPM and better volumetric efficiency, and while German engineers understood the concept theoretically, they'd never seen it implemented successfully in a production engine, revealing that Britain had solved engineering problems Germany had abandoned as too difficult for wartime development and mass production. Wing construction revealed manufacturing quality that German facilities couldn't replicate under wartime conditions. The thin, elliptical wing featured precision ribs, stringers, and skin panels machined to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch, tighter than most German peacetime production achieved, and the fabric-covered control surfaces used advanced materials and construction techniques that demonstrated British aviation industry hadn't been crippled by bombing despite years of Luftwaffe attacks on industrial targets. Huber's team spent 3 weeks measuring, photographing, and analyzing every component. Their final report ran to 127 pages of technical documentation. But the concluding section was brief and devastating. Germany could not replicate the Tempest's design without 18 to 24 months of development work, and mass production would require manufacturing capabilities and materials Germany no longer possessed, making the entire analysis academic because by the time Germany could field equivalent aircraft, the war would be decided through other factors entirely. But the engineering analysis paled compared to production realities. The Tempest analysis included intelligence reports about British production rates that transformed engineering assessment into strategic despair. Britain was producing Tempests at rates exceeding 100 aircraft monthly, while simultaneously manufacturing Spitfires, Mosquitoes, and Lancasters. German industrial intelligence calculated that Britain's aviation production capacity exceeded Germany's despite years of bombing campaigns designed to cripple British industry, forcing recognition that strategic bombing hadn't achieved its primary objective while consuming resources Germany desperately needed for defensive operations. The metallurgical analysis proved particularly devastating. The Tempest used chromium-nickel steel alloys, high-temperature aluminum alloys, and specialized bearing materials. Germany had limited access to these strategic materials due to Allied blockades and lost territories, meaning that even if German engineers could design equivalent aircraft, building them in quantity was impossible without materials that couldn't be sourced, creating an unbridgeable gap between theoretical capabilities and practical production realities. Manufacturing precision comparisons revealed systematic British advantages. The Sabre engine's tolerances required machine tools and skilled workers that German industry possessed in 1939, but no longer maintained in 1944. Allied bombing had destroyed precision machinery, killed or conscripted skilled workers, and forced production dispersal to crude facilities where maintaining peacetime quality standards was impossible, while Britain's industry continued operating with capabilities that German facilities had lost progressively throughout the war. One section of Huber's report compared production economics. A Tempest required approximately 15,000 man-hours to manufacture. A late-war Bf-109G required 12,000 man-hours, but used inferior materials and achieved lower performance. The comparison revealed that Britain was investing more resources per aircraft while producing superior results, demonstrating industrial efficiency and resource availability that Germany couldn't match, and suggesting that even total mobilization of remaining German capacity wouldn't close performance gaps that were widening rather than narrowing as the war progressed. Even acknowledging inferiority, one question haunted German command. Speaking of which, if you're starting to see just how hopeless Germany's situation really was, you've got to subscribe because what comes next shows exactly how they tried and failed to fight back against the Tempest. Luftwaffe Command ordered development of fighters capable of countering the Tempest threat. The Focke-Wulf Tar 152H was designed for high-altitude supremacy but shared the Tempest's low-altitude speed advantages. The Dornier Do 335 File used a unique push-pull engine configuration promising 475 miles per hour. Both aircraft existed primarily on paper and in small prototype numbers when the war ended, demonstrating that German aviation industry could still design advanced aircraft, but lacked capacity to produce them in quantities that would affect combat outcomes, making engineering excellence strategically irrelevant when production capability determined victory. Tactical adaptations proved equally futile. Luftwaffe fighter units received directives to avoid low-altitude engagement with Tempests, maintain altitude advantage, and refuse combat when Tempests held position superiority. These defensive doctrines essentially conceded British air superiority below 15,000 feet, exactly where ground attack and bomber interception missions occurred, forcing German fighters into passive defensive postures that surrendered initiative to opponents who could operate with impunity at tactically critical altitudes. Pilot quality declined catastrophically as experienced aviators died and replacement training programs couldn't produce adequately skilled pilots. By early 1945, average Luftwaffe pilot training had fallen to 110 hours compared to 300+ hours for RAF pilots. Even when German fighters possessed theoretical performance advantages, inexperienced pilots couldn't exploit them against veteran Tempest squadrons whose pilots had years of combat experience, creating tactical disparities that equipment advantages couldn't overcome when the humans operating the equipment lacked necessary skills. The Tempest became symbolic of Germany's larger strategic crisis. It wasn't the best Allied fighter in every category. The Mustang had better range, manufacture them in quantity using sophisticated materials and precision techniques, and field them with experienced pilots, demonstrating systematic advantages across design, production, and training that Germany had lost progressively throughout the war and couldn't recover regardless of desperate measures attempted. German assessment of the Hawker Tempest evolved from dismissive confidence to recognition that Britain had achieved performance and production capabilities Germany couldn't match. The fighter that shot down V-1s and jets revealed industrial superiority that made German defeat inevitable regardless of tactical innovations or technological advances. The Tempest didn't just win battles. It proved wars are won in factories. Watch the next video of vintage planes for more untold stories.